Hello everyone, and welcome back to Stamps US. Today we're looking at an interesting piece of American postal history, a 25-cent US airmail stamp featuring President Abraham Lincoln. At first glance it may look like an ordinary old stamp, but collectors know that some vintage US airmail stamps can be surprisingly valuable. In this video, we'll explore the history of this stamp, what makes it special, how much it could be worth today, and the key features collectors look for before spending serious money. Abraham Lincoln is one of the most respected presidents in American history. He led the United States through the Civil War and played a major role in ending slavery. Because of his importance, Lincoln has appeared on many U.S. stamps over the years. The stamp you're seeing combines Lincoln's portrait with the words, "By the people, for the people," honoring his famous ideals of democracy. On the right side is the bold U.S. airmail design with an airplane, reminding us of the rapid growth of airmail service in the United States during the 20th century. Airmail transformed the postal system. Before airplanes carried mail, letters often traveled by train or ship and could take days or even weeks to arrive. As aviation improved, the U.S. Postal Service introduced airmail stamps so customers could pay for faster delivery. These stamps became symbols of innovation and modern transportation, and today they remain popular among stamp collectors around the world. Now let's talk about value, because that's the question everyone wants answered. Many people see old stamps online with headlines claiming they are worth tens of thousands or even millions of dollars. The truth is that most used examples of this 25-cent Lincoln airmail stamp are common and typically sell for only a few dollars, especially if they have heavy cancellation marks like the one shown in this image. A well-used copy in average condition often sells for around $1 to $10, while a clean, lie. So why do some stamps become incredibly valuable? The answer is rarity and condition. Collectors pay premium prices only when a stamp has something truly unusual. That could be a printing error, a missing color, an inverted design, an imperfect example, or a stamp preserved in flawless mint condition with its original gum. Certified errors are extremely rare and can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Without one of these special characteristics, most copies remain affordable collector items rather than investment-grade rarities. Condition is one of the biggest factors in determining value. Collectors carefully inspect every detail. They look at whether the stamp has bright original colors, sharp perforations, good centering, and minimal damage. Tears, creases, thin spots, stains, faded ink, or heavy postmarks usually reduce the value significantly. Even two stamps from the same issue can have very different prices depending on their condition. Another important factor is authenticity. High-value stamps are often submitted to professional expertising organizations for certification. A certificate confirming that a stamp is genuine can dramatically increase buyer confidence and market value. Without expert certification, collectors are generally cautious about paying high prices for expensive stamps. If you own one of these Lincoln airmail stamps, don't throw it away, but don't assume it's worth a fortune either. Start by checking whether it's mint or used. Examine it under good lighting or with a magnifying glass. Look for unusual printing mistakes, missing colors, shifted designs, or any feature that appears different from normal examples. Compare it with catalog listings and recent auction results. If you believe your stamp has an unusual variety, consider having it evaluated by a professional stamp expert. Many new collectors are surprised to learn that rarity matters far more than age. Just because a stamp is several decades old doesn't automatically make it valuable. Millions of stamps were printed, and many still survive today. The stamps that command the highest prices are those with very low surviving populations, exceptional condition, or rare production errors. Collecting stamps is about much more than money. Every stamp tells a story about the people, history, transportation, and technology of its time. This Abraham Lincoln airmail stamp represents both one of America's greatest presidents and an era when airmail revolutionized communication across the country. That's what makes it an enjoyable addition to many collections, even if it's not a high-priced rarity. Next up, we're taking a close look at one of the most recognizable stamps in American history, the 1-cent Benjamin Franklin stamp. Millions of people have seen this classic blue stamp, but very few know that certain versions have sold for hundreds, thousands, and even tens of thousands of dollars. So how can you tell whether the one in your collection is an ordinary stamp or a valuable collector's item? Stay with me because today we're uncovering the history, rarity, and real market value of this famous U.S. stamp. Benjamin Franklin was not only one of America's founding fathers, but he was also the nation's very first postmaster general. Because of his enormous contribution to the American postal system, Franklin has appeared on countless U.S. postage stamps over the last 175 years. His portrait has become one of the most iconic images in American philately, making Franklin stamps favorites among collectors around the world. The stamp you're looking at is a 1-cent blue Benjamin Franklin definitive stamp. It was produced in enormous quantities for everyday mail, meaning millions of copies were printed and used across the United States. Since it paid the basic letter rate during its era, it became one of the most common U.S. stamps ever issued. However, while most examples are inexpensive, certain rare varieties can be highly valuable. Now let's talk about the value. This is where many collectors get excited. A typical used copy like the one shown in this video usually sells for 50 cents to around $5, depending on its condition and centering. A clean mint copy with original gum may sell for $10 to $50. These prices are common because so many examples still exist. But here's where things become interesting. Some rare varieties of the 1-cent Benjamin Franklin stamp have sold for hundreds or even several $1,000s. The most valuable examples are those with exceptional centering, pristine mint condition, rare printing varieties, unusual perforations, watermarks, or significant production errors. These are the stamps serious collectors compete for at major auctions. Professional collectors examine every detail before determining value. They check whether the stamp has sharp perforations, bright original color, and perfectly balanced margins. Even a tiny crease, tear, thin spot, or heavy cancellation can reduce the value dramatically. On the other hand, a perfectly preserved example with outstanding centering can command many times the price of an average copy. One of the biggest mistakes new collectors make is assuming that every old stamp is worth a fortune. Age alone does not create value. What truly matters is rarity, condition, demand, and authenticity. Millions of Franklin stamps were printed, so only the finest or rarest varieties bring premium prices in today's market. If you own a Benjamin Franklin 1-cent stamp, don't rush to sell it without examining it carefully. Compare it with specialized stamp catalogs, check the perforation gauge, look for watermarks if applicable, and inspect it under magnification for any unusual printing characteristics. If your stamp appears different from standard examples, it may be worth having it authenticated by a professional philatelic expert. Collectors also value stamps with historical significance. Every Franklin stamp represents an important period in American postal history. It reminds us of the growth of communication in the United States and honors the men who helped establish the country's postal service. That historical importance is one of the reasons these stamps remain popular more than a century after they were printed. If your stamp is beautifully centered, and used with original gum, or belongs to a scarce printing variety, it could be worth substantially more than an ordinary example. High-grade certified copies have achieved impressive prices at major stamp auctions because collectors are always searching for the finest known examples. So, is your Benjamin Franklin stamp a hidden treasure? The answer depends on its exact issue, condition, perforation, watermark, and whether it has any rare characteristics. While most examples are affordable collector stamps, a small number have become valuable pieces of American philatelic history. Next up, we're looking at one of America's most recognizable postage stamps, the 8-cent Liberty stamp featuring the Statue of Liberty and the words, "In God We Trust." At first glance, it may seem like an ordinary stamp that millions of Americans once used for mailing letters. But could this classic stamp actually be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars today? In this video, we'll uncover its fascinating history, explain what collectors look for, and reveal its real market value. The Statue of Liberty is one of the greatest symbols of freedom in the United States. Since its dedication in 1886, it has welcomed millions of immigrants arriving in New York Harbor and has become an international symbol of hope, democracy, and opportunity. Because of its historical importance, the U.S. Postal Service has featured the Statue of Liberty on numerous postage stamps over the years. The 8-cent Liberty stamp is one of the most memorable designs from the Liberty series. This stamp was issued for everyday postal use, meaning it was printed in extremely large quantities. Millions of Americans used it to send letters, bills, greeting cards, and business correspondence. Because so many were produced, most surviving examples are common. However, that doesn't mean every copy has the same value. Some rare varieties and exceptionally preserved examples can attract serious interest from collectors. Now let's discuss the value, because that's what everyone wants to know. A typical used 8-cent Liberty stamp with a cancellation mark generally sells for 25 cents to around $3, depending on its condition. A mint, never hinged example with original gum usually sells for $2 to $15. Complete sheets, plate blocks, and high-grade certified examples may bring $25 to over $100, especially if they are perfectly centered and in flawless condition. But here's where things become exciting. Rare printing errors are what collectors dream of finding. If a Liberty stamp has a dramatic color shift, missing color, perforation error, misprint, or another verified production mistake, its value can increase dramatically. Depending on the rarity and condition, certified error stamps have sold for hundreds or even several $1,000s at specialized stamp auctions. Professional collectors carefully inspect every detail before determining a stamp's value. They examine the centering of the design, the sharpness of the perforations, the brightness of the original colors, and whether the stamp has any tears, creases, stains, or thinning. Even small imperfections can significantly reduce the value, while a perfectly preserved example can command a premium. Many people believe that any old stamp is automatically valuable, but that's one of the biggest misconceptions in stamp collecting. Age alone does not determine price. The most important factors are rarity, condition, demand, and authenticity. A common stamp from the 1960s or 1970s may be worth only $1, while a rare error from the same period could be worth hundreds or even thousands. If you have this 8-cent Liberty stamp in your collection, take a close look before assuming it's ordinary. Check whether it's mint or used. Examine it under a magnifying glass for unusual printing characteristics, missing colors, double impressions, or perforation differences. Compare it with specialized stamp catalogs and recent auction results. If you notice anything unusual, consider having it examined by a professional philatelic expert. Even when it isn't worth a fortune, this stamp remains an important piece of American postal history. It represents an era when billions of letters traveled across the country, connecting families, businesses, and friends long before email and smartphones became part of everyday life. For many collectors, that historical significance is just as valuable as the stamp's market price. So, is your 8-cent Liberty stamp a hidden treasure? The answer depends on its condition, whether it's mint or used, and whether it has any rare printing varieties or certified errors. While most examples are affordable collector stamps, the finest and rarest examples can still achieve impressive prices in today's stamp market. Next up, we're taking a closer look at a fascinating U.S. postage stamp featuring one of America's most famous authors, Jack London. This 25-cent stamp is a favorite among literary collectors and stamp enthusiasts alike. But how much is it worth today, and could it be hiding unexpected value in your collection? Let's find out. Jack London is best known for writing classic adventure novels such as The Call of the Wild and White Fang. His stories of survival, exploration, and adventure have inspired readers around the world for more than a century. To honor his contribution to American literature, the United States Postal Service issued this beautiful 25-cent commemorative stamp featuring his portrait. The stamp shows a detailed blue-toned image of Jack London with the denomination of 25 cents in the upper right corner. It was issued as part of a series celebrating important American writers and cultural figures. Because of its attractive design and literary significance, it quickly became popular among collectors. Now let's discuss the value. Most collectors are surprised to learn that not every old stamp is worth a fortune. A typical used copy of this Jack London stamp generally sells for 25 cents to $2. A mint never hinged example in excellent condition may be worth $1 to $5, while complete sheets, plate blocks, or specialized collector items can sell for $10 to $50 or more, depending on demand and condition. However, there are exceptions. If a stamp has a genuine printing error, color shift, perforation mistake, or another unusual production variety, its value can increase significantly. Rare error stamps are always in demand because collectors love unique items that are different from standard issues. Condition plays a huge role in determining value. Professional collectors carefully examine centering, perforations, color quality, gum condition, and any signs of damage. A perfectly centered mint example is usually worth much more than a heavily used copy with creases, stains, or torn perforations. Many beginners believe that age alone determines value, but that is not true. What really matters is rarity, condition, collector demand, and authenticity. Some modern stamps can be worth more than much older stamps simply because fewer examples exist or because they contain rare printing varieties. If you own this Jack London stamp, take a few minutes to inspect it closely. Look for sharp perforations, bright original color, and any unusual printing characteristics. Compare it with stamp catalog listings and recent auction results. If you think your stamp may be a rare variety, consider having it examined by a professional philatelic expert. Beyond its monetary value, this stamp represents an important part of American cultural history. It honors a writer whose books continue to be read and studied throughout the world. For many collectors, the historical and literary significance of the stamp is just as important as its market value. So, is your 25-cent Jack London stamp worth a fortune? Most examples are affordable collector items, but exceptional condition, rare varieties, and certified errors can make certain examples much more valuable. Whether you're collecting for investment or simply for enjoyment, this stamp remains a wonderful piece of American philatelic history. Thank you for watching Stamps US. If you enjoy learning about rare US stamps, their history, and their market values, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Let us know in the comments if you own this Jack London stamp and what condition it's in. Until next time, happy collecting and thanks for watching.